Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Unraveling with Jamie and July. What are we talking about today, July?
Well, Jamie, today we are going to be exploring the power of human touch, how a simple hug, a pat on the back, or a squeeze of the hand can profoundly impact our well-being. Join us as we dive deeply into the science, share personal stories, discuss some things going on in our social culture these days, and uncover why touch is essential in fostering connection, reducing stress, and helping us feel truly seen and understood.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah?
Take
Sound
it
like
away.
a fun
Let's
subject?
do it.
We should be cuddling while we do
Right?
this.
Get over here on the other side of the table.
I know. Like, we're across from each other.
Well, here, we can hold hands.
We'll hold hands. We are doing
There
it.
we go.
So I think the first thing to touch on is what inspired us to talk about this. I think it's multifaceted. There's many layers to why.
I mean, I feel like we both had the same thing that kind of really initiated this conversation.
Well, first we should say we have talked about this a lot over the years.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of discussion over how it feels like a natural thing when you are in a good place in your healing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that plays a huge role.
Mm-hmm.
To want to touch and connect, to want to hug, to want to be hugged, to that's just, and we've discussed how we've encountered lots of people who are not keen on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this subject came up now because of some stuff going on in media right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sweet Drew Barrymore. Yeah. So she is getting so much criticism right now because of how she touches people.
Yeah, in her interviews.
Yeah.
How, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's really, I noticed it a while back.
Mm-hmm.
I had noticed some clips because I just love Drew Barrymore so much. And just having, well, I'm the same age, 1 year younger.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's kind of like, I feel like we've kind of grown up together, right? We've grew up with her always there. And so I love watching her little shorts. I don't watch her show.
No, me neither. I watch a lot of her shorts.
Yeah. So I do tune in to like her social media and all the shorts, and I enjoy them so much. And I don't normally look at comments. But it just so happened one day I noticed something, and this was a while back. And so this has been going on for quite some time, I think. And it was just the most scathing criticism about her, how she was conducting herself with her guests. And so I started scrolling, and there were lots. There were so many people just appalled, it seemed. And just making just very not nice comments about it. And honestly, the first thing that occurred to me was how sad. How terribly sad. I almost put a comment in, except that I don't like to be part of comment streams. I'm just like, no, thank you. Don't want the notifications. Not going to get into an online debate because I feel like that's always just a waste of time.
Why get in an online debate when you can just make a podcast?
Yeah. So I find it concerning, and it caused me to reflect on ways I've been before I healed. Started healing is what I should say. We're never healed, as we know. And it just makes me so terribly sad. It's heartbreaking. And of all the things to pick on someone for,
right?
like, Truly. Not that we should pick on anyone for anything, really.
No, but I mean, like, there's definitely, I think I was saying this earlier, there's definitely way more things we could pick on, I'll say, that show up in social media or media in general of inappropriate touching or inappropriateness in many different regards. And it's very sad that this one is being targeted when it's not inappropriate. No. It's actually quite lovely to see.
It truly is. And I think that people are missing the mark on many things in this, which is, one, Drew has had her own healing journey. And that's right off the bat. Like, give me a break. Do you not, like, how can you not acknowledge this? Secondly, a lot of these people that are coming on her show are also people that are famous. And I mean, primarily. Many of them she's grown up with.
Yeah. And many of the other ones are the next generation with whom I'm sure she feels a sense of, like, you know, mentorship. And yeah. For sure.
Absolutely. And then the one that's one of the hottest topics at this current time when we're recording this is an interview that she did with Oprah. And I mean, for goodness sakes, that one just infuriates me.
Who wouldn't want to hold Oprah's hand? First of all, I'm just kidding.
Well, truly. But with Drew, there's a difference here, and it is that Oprah has been interviewing Drew since she was a child. And so she has known this woman since her childhood. And if you go back, all you have to do is do a quick search on YouTube, and you can find some of this old footage, and you can see how much Oprah had genuine sympathy and concern and compassion for Drew through her struggles that she faced, and the connection that was, I would have to imagine, formed back then. I just cannot imagine that Oprah Winfrey, with all that she is, or at least claims to be, would be offended, disgusted, appalled, all the words that are being used, by sweet Drew Barrymore, who she has watched grow into this amazing woman who is now has her own talk show, and her just be like, oh gosh, how dare her be touching me. I'm sorry, but if that's the case, then Oprah Winfrey is a very different person than what I would think. And I don't understand how others are not seeing this and just going, this is, imagine, oh, poor, whoever it is. I mean, Oprah's a prime example, but like, it's with everyone that goes on there.
Yeah.
I'm not spending too much time on this, but I've spent enough time to see that this is a trend. Why? Why are people so offended by touching? What is going on? And what did COVID do to us? Because the research shows that some of this has come out of COVID. So, yeah, that's what's prompted this.
Yeah.
Because I think I sent you the thing, right? And I was just like, I sent you a short, or I was just like, have you seen this?
No, you told me about the comments, because I'm not a comment looker at all, ever.
Me neither.
I watch things I enjoy, and that's it. But yeah, no, you told me about the comments, and then I kind of like looked up what was going on with the whole thing, and then I came across some information saying that Drew was actually going to try and change her behavior because of this. And then I was like, now that's sad. That's moving in the wrong direction.
I truly think it is. I mean, personal boundaries, of course. And
100%.
She certainly could change her structure where she does ask. Yes.
100%.
I'm a very touchy-feely person. And, however, what are your boundaries?
Exactly. 100%.
And
Absolutely.
then set up the stage appropriately. I mean, because I
Absolutely.
know I've seen where they're in separate chairs or they're
Yeah.
on a couch
100%.
together, right? And that kind of would
Yeah.
just help with that boundary barrier
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah. Yes,
And
boundaries, definitely important.
boundaries are very important.
Mhm.
However, being disgusted by human
Mhm.
touch is a genuine public concern
Mhm.
for our health and well-being.
Mhm.
We have a mental health
Mhm.
crisis going on. We've probably always had a mental health crisis.
Probably. We just didn't
would
know
imagine.
about
We
it.
we just weren't talking about
Yeah.
it,
That's
and we
right.
were shaming it.
Yeah.
Um, we need touch.
Mhm.
It's the very first thing that we identify, the very first sense when we're born is
Yeah.
the touch of our mothers. We know how important touch is for infants. Like,
Mhm.
it is absolutely essential.
Mhm.
Infants that are neglected and left in their cribs, they have terrible side effects
Mhm.
from it. And I don't have that research to
Mhm.
share because
Mhm.
I don't want to go off on all
Yeah.
there is
There's a lot of
so
branches we could
much
go.
research
Yeah.
that says humans need touch.
Mhm.
And we need to hug. We
Mhm.
need to hold hands. And I think that shaming it is so going
Mhm.
backwards. And to allow COVID to do that, COVID has had some really interesting effects on us
Mhm.
socially. And I really think that allowing it to affect this is a big mistake.
Yeah, I think it was there before,
Oh,
for
100%.
sure. And
100%.
but I think COVID has kind of had an impact on both ends of the spectrum of physical touch, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Where now people realize how important it is, and people are craving it more, and
Mhm.
um like going for it more.
Mhm.
And it's also had the opposite effect too, where
Yeah.
people are now more scared, and they have those boundaries and walls up that are like, oh god, touch, no.
Yeah, which touch is so important. It produces oxytocin
Mhm.
in our system.
Literally one of the only ways to produce oxytocin
Yeah.
is through connection.
Mhm. And 20-second long hugs
Mhm.
are highly recommended.
Those are the hugs that I like to say make it weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make
I
it weird.
literally have a friend who I hug, and we always say, we're going to make it weird. And we always do.
Yeah, and then I have become, I shouldn't say I am because it took a while to get here, but I have become this just long hugger.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody's always telling me, I mean,
Mhm.
you know this, you witness it, like, "Oh my god, you give the best
Mhm.
hugs." And I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing," but yeah, okay, it's fine. So, but there was a time
Mhm.
when I wasn't okay with hugging.
Mhm.
How about you?
With hugging?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like there was definitely a time I was a little more reserved with hugging, and like I would always hug because I came from a family where one side of the family always hugged, but it was kind of just those like hugs that you did because that's what you were supposed to
The
do.
quick
The
hug.
quick hug, sometimes the pat on the back, which I hate the pat on the back. It's
Mhm.
such a like I'm hugging you, but I don't want to be.
Oh, yes.
Um, yeah. So, but I definitely, yeah, like when it came to like hugging people I didn't know very well, or like people I was just meeting, like now I will hug people I meet for the first time. Like that's like my handshake, as
Mhm.
opposed to, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll
Are you
ask,
a
are you a
hugger?
hugger? And if they say yes, I go in. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely wasn't always a hugger or always comfortable with it, for
No.
sure.
No, and I think that's part of why I did feel so sad seeing the
Mhm.
comments because, I mean, I know how much healing we still need in our society. I'm not, ignorant to that
Mhm.
with being a healer, obviously. But I don't know. It's always hard to face how bad
Mhm.
the situation really is.
And I think it's also, yeah, it's true, and it's also like hugging's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, really, if you think about it, it's like
Truly.
that's kind of like the thing that I think a lot of people maybe start with when it comes to getting more comfortable with like connection and physical touch and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, because
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I'll say for myself, there before I really started my conscious healing journey, I was very adverse to touch.
Mhm.
The only people that were allowed to touch me was my children and my husband. I really did not like being touched at all. It
Mhm.
made me very uncomfortable. I avoided it as much as I could. And that was from a lot of trauma that
Mhm.
I had experienced and hadn't healed. And I was not a hugger.
Mhm.
Um, I was very closed off to that. And it's interesting the way that that changed for me. And I think I've told you this story before. So before I ever went to an energy healing, things were starting to get stirred up inside me. I could feel it. I was doing a lot of reflecting, a lot of, just different walls were coming down, a
Mhm.
lot of self reflection that generally happens just through maturity.
Mhm.
Um, and one day I had encountered someone. We were walking around a very busy farmers market, and we hit this sort of roadblock of where there used to be a flow of traffic, and it really threw us both off. This was a total stranger, and it just kind of like we both kind of hit this little roadblock, and we're like, "What? Well, this is inconvenient. Like, what is happening here in this market that we regularly attend?"
Mhm.
And and we both kind of looked at each other, and it was just one of those times when you connect randomly with another human. And I looked up at him, and I made a joke. And this is the other strange part, is that this was a man, which is like
Yeah.
really out of character for
Right.
me. And I looked up at him. I was just like, the least at least they could have given it a purpose
Mhm.
instead of just putting a a barrier here that you could not get around. And I was like, I mean, geez, even if it was just like a hugging booth. And I don't know what had, like, it was like, honestly, in the
Mhm.
moment, I don't know what overtook my
Mhm.
body.
Mhm. A hugger,
So
apparently.
apparently, because I was not a hugger.
Mhm.
And I I turned to him, and he was like, seriously though, and like he was agreeing, and I was like, well, we may as well set an example here, I guess, huh? We're both in agreement. And I hugged this stranger.
Mhm.
It was odd.
Mhm.
It was an odd moment, and yet a huge turning point
Mhm.
for me. And then not too long after that, I was in my first energy healing,
Mhm.
and I had made it very clear that I didn't like touch.
Mhm.
And uh, thank goodness my healer, you know, she had already earned some trust from me at that point, and I'll be darned if she wasn't guided in the energy healing to touch my face
Mhm.
pretty much near the whole time, it felt like. And for the first time in my life, it didn't bother me.
Mhm.
And after that healing, I was okay with being touched,
Mhm.
and I was a hugger, very much so a hugger.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we've witnessed a lot with
Mhm.
the anti-touch, anti-hugging in
Mhm.
along the healing
Mhm.
path. So now what about you with your hug? Do you have a hugging journey to share?
I don't think I really have a hugging journey. I don't know. I just kind of like I I just kind of started doing it as like when I started going to a lot of different. Well, actually, I mean, I have a heart hug story because like that's when after my first healing session with you was when I learned about heart hugs. So
Mhm.
you hug heart to heart, and
Mhm.
like I have not hugged the other way since then. Like it just
And
like
yeah.
made so much sense to me. And I feel like that's probably the moment when I like started to embrace my hugging. Funny. I didn't even mean to say it that way. Um but I will say like I started reflecting kind of on where I'm at in general with touch, not just
Mhm.
hugging. Like hugging I love. I love hugs. All about hugs.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll hug everybody. Um, but I did notice for myself that like touch in other ways is still And it's not something so much that I resist, so much as it's something I just don't think to do. And it actually surprises me when someone else does it. Like, even if it's just like a touch on the shoulder or a holding the hand, or, you know what I mean? Just like a nurturing touch in any way, shape, or form. It surprises me because I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
And like, because I didn't grow up in a household where there was a whole lot of like nurturing. You had to ask for a hug. And sometimes you didn't get a hug back. Like, it was just stuff like that. There wasn't a whole lot of like touch or that type of nurturing. So I realized, kind of in my own reflection, was like, oh, that's something I just don't really think about. It's not something that I don't like, but I do kind of react or resist it because it's so unfamiliar.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you haven't seen it a lot in your household growing up, if it's not going on in your household as an adult, or amongst your friend group, it is going to look odd to you when you see it amongst other people, or especially like in this situation with Drew Barrymore, where it's like a show, a regular, and you're seeing it consistently, and you're going, what the heck?
Yeah. And it's also something that's been shamed, I will say, too, especially amongst, I'm going to say, for example, amongst like girlfriends, right? You're too cuddly or handsy, well, then you're a lesbian. Yeah. Like, I got a lot of that growing up, too, and I know that that's affected how I am in relationships now, because I know I am naturally I'm a very, like, cuddle bug kind of person, but I do hold myself back because of that type of those comments, because it's like they made me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, and I definitely have witnessed and encountered those types of comments as well. And it is a shame. I think there's even been a few things said before about like just like our different friend groups and such, right? Like, because I mean, when you're in a group of friends and you're all healing together, it's natural. You're crying together. You're going to comfort one another. You're going to put your hand on the other's back and rub their back. You're going to cuddle up to them in ceremonies, and it feels natural and normal and good. And it is so soothing and comforting. And the world does not know quite how to receive it when they see you out in public. They're kind of put off. You get stares. It is very strange. And then when new people come in to the group and they encounter this very open and touchy, cuddly vibe with no shame, they really struggle to adapt into it. It seems from what I've witnessed and experienced. So and it's sad. It's just plain sad, because why would it have anything to do with your sexuality? Why should it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, so many things have been, lines are blurred and everything's sexualized. Yeah.
Everything is sexualized, and it's ridiculous. It's like, enough is enough.
But only amongst certain ages, though.
Certain ages, yeah. And certain cultures.
Yes.
Certain cultures, because there's other cultures where they do hold hands and walk down the street, same sex, and nobody thinks anything of it.
Well, and we do it as little kids. Well, we don't think, some of us.
Some do. I say, because, but like, boy, I have a story.
Well, but yeah. I mean, I'm sure, like, I'm not saying we all do it as little kids, but like, I didn't think twice as a little kid about grabbing my friend's hand and running across the yard, or, locking arms and skipping. You don't think twice about it.
It's natural.
It's natural.
It's very natural when we're kids. However, and I don't know, I mean, it's probably still going on. I don't know. When my kids were younger and they were in the public school system, we had an incident. Oh boy,
did always begins with an incident.
And it was, one of my children had a best friend who they were little. They couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, the tops. And I got called in because these two young ones were holding hands, and it was against school policy for them to hold hands. And I remember just being in absolute shock. Like, what are you talking about? These are little children. Well, it's against the policy. We're a no touching policy. And I said, well, but neither one of them is complaining, correct? No, but it's the policy. And me and the other parent had to give our consent that this was okay, so that these two little ones would still be allowed to have that comfort of one another. I mean, these kids were attached at the hip and to hold each other's hands. But it was not considered acceptable behavior. Yeah. Now, how's that going to mess with a child?
Right.
And I can't even imagine how it's now become with what we had to do with social distancing and all of that. And I really, truly, it makes me, it's horrific to think about, of what that must have done.
Well, especially to kids in their early developmental stages,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. It's going against our human nature, obviously. And very sad. And what if they have a friend at school that actually is holding their hand and they don't have a warm and happy home to go to? That could be the only touch they're receiving all day.
Yep.
And, I just think it's a very unfortunate thing. That's where we've gotten to in our society. Yeah. Yeah. That we are actually telling little children that we can't. And like I say, I don't know that that's still going on. I don't know that I imagine it's not a public school, like across the board sort of a thing, but this was back when we were in
It's
America.
Definitely still going on. I've worked some jobs where there was some interesting rules.
Yeah. And that's just, it's not okay. And, definitely one of the many reasons why I pulled my kids home to homeschool them. I was just like, enough of this nonsense. I don't want my kids having to be subjected to all of this nonsense. Like, there was just so many layers. Yeah. So that was just, sort of one of the nails in the coffin, if you will. So yeah, and I think it's also a big concern. It's not just the fact that we've come through a pandemic that made us social distance and that became the necessity and the new norm and all that. But we also live in a world where digital interactions dominate. Yeah. I mean, I know recently I heard that a lot of people are really struggling like they don't have a single friend much that's not online, if that. And that like that really impacted me when I heard that, because I was just like, I can't even imagine not having a friend that you can see and connect with and touch and hear their voice right there in front of you. And so people are struggling with this. So I mean, how often do we stop to think about the value of physical touch and what it does for our well-being, and why are hugs and simple touch so powerful? Like, do we even really reflect on it much? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Probably not.
I don't know that people are.
No.
So here we have this vital thing for the development of us as human beings. Yeah. And we're not discussing it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've had many discussions about it. Have you?
No, I haven't either. I'm kind of just like, the wheels are turning in my head right now. No, I haven't had much discussion about it. And I think it's kind of one of those like almost silent things that we don't realize is so important. Because you can technically survive without it.
You can.
But you're most likely experiencing higher levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness. Like the list goes on.
Well, it's actually being researched.
Yeah.
And it that is the facts.
Exactly.
It increases.
Yeah.
Your risk of.
Well, because it's connection.
Yeah.
As like physical touch is just one aspect of connection. We need, I should actually I take that back. The whole like we don't need it to survive. We need connection to survive.
We do.
We absolutely
We
do. And as you said, it's becoming more and more digital connection as opposed to real in-person connecting.
There's actually a term they're using for it: touch starved.
Touch starved. Yeah, that's awful.
This new,
because it's free.
No, and they're calling it. I have a little bit of the research up here. They're calling it. It's especially in highly digital societies, people are experiencing. This is what they're referring to it as. It's bizarre. Touch hunger and skin hunger. That sounds kind of gruesome.
Yeah,
but that's people, and that's lack of touch. So this is actually becoming a full-blown condition, it sounds like. I mean, it must be, because why else would they be researching it like they are and giving it these terms? So, yeah. I guess the question is like, in people listening, like, do you feel touch starved? If you're really being honest with yourself, and if you don't like being touched, why?
Yeah.
Why? Because I know for myself, I actually truly do. There's not a lot I remember about my whole state of being internally before conscious healing. But boy, I do remember that one. That one sticks out for me, of how I felt about not wanting to be touched, and the anxiety surrounding being touched, and the opinions and feelings surrounding touching. And it was terrible. It was not a good place to be at all. And I'm so glad to have healed enough to move past it. So if you are not very responsive to touch, and or if it is offending you, why? Like, is there a part of you that needs some healing? Like, that's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also like ways in which you can kind of like push yourself out of that comfort zone, right? It's like,
yeah, because it's part of growth. We have to push ourselves out of our comfort zones to grow. And I do understand that some of the reasons that people have aversions to touch, like, I get it. I know why I had aversions to touch, and they're extreme. The reasons are extreme. So I can imagine other people's reasons are very extreme.
Well, and there's so many reasons.
Because there's been so much trauma.
Yeah.
So much trauma. And this generational trauma we're dealing with, like, for example, if for generations nobody in your family line was much of huggers, well, no wonder you have an aversion to touch. It's a generational trauma that you have. You know, the parents weren't hugging the children. And that's so, so sad. And we need to heal those things. And I think that healing, one first step would be stop judging other people who are doing it. Why?
Or ask why it bothers you.
Yeah, why does it bother you? And like, because I just think about this, back to the subject of this current issue going on with Drew Barrymore. It's just like, what's it to you? How do you know that those people don't like it? Like, the things, that, they must be uncomfortable. They seem uncomfortable. Really? Are you that person? Do you know? Like, to form such strong opinions, it's so concerning of what must be going on inside. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that requires some self-evaluation and reflection in your own healing journey. My opinion. My opinion, because I don't want to have a condition called touch starved.
No.
I've got enough problems already.
Yeah, I'm snacky enough.
Right.
I don't need other snack issues.
Snack issues. You would go to the snacks. My goodness.
Or,
Yeah, so for those of you that do feel touch starved, or want to build stronger connections? What are some ways we can mindfully incorporate more touch into our lives? Like what can we do? Like what can we suggest?
Ask for hugs.
Yeah. Ask people, are you
Yeah.
a hugger? You'd be surprised how many people are.
It's true. So many, like, I don't think I've ever I've never come across someone who straight up said no. That's a lie. I did have a few coworkers years ago who were straight up like, I'm not a hugger. And I was like, I'll break you down. You'll hug me eventually. And they were like, no. I didn't try to like force it on them or anything. Don't worry. But yeah, no, straight up met a few. But not very often do I come across someone who's like, no, don't hug me. Usually if I'm like, hey, are you a hugger? They're like, hell yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then one of my other friends, I just started hugging her because she like wasn't a hugger. And I just started going in for hugs, and then she hugged me back. And she never said, hey, don't hug me, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I warned her I was coming in for a hug too, so.
Yeah. Well, it's always good.
Yeah, like I'm like, I'm hugging you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
For sure. I don't know if I've encountered anybody in a long, long time. I've definitely encountered some people that I know I can tell in the process of the hug they're not comfortable.
For sure. But they're trying.
They're trying.
Yeah.
They, because we're in
they
a lot
do want
of,
it.
They do. Yeah. We're in a lot of groups often where it's kind of everybody's hugging. So, but if somebody new comes in, they might, be a little put off at first. And usually they'll give you the kind of, I kind of call it like it's a bit of a sloppy hug, if you will. It's very light. There's not really that good, solid
and grip. I totally respect that when people do that. I'm not going to give them a weird hug. No. I only give the weird hugs to the ones who
I tend to
hug back.
I pull back a little faster. I don't go in too long. I always know. It's funny because you mentioned it earlier. I always know if they start patting me on the back.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
That's for sure.
That's cute.
This is
get out of here.
This
hug's over.
This one's
I'm tapping out.
A hugger.
I'm tapping out. Just tapping out of this hug.
Oh, I'm kind of okay with this pat, but not really.
It's over now.
Can we just be done? Yeah, you can feel it.
But I think once again, hugging is kind of just like the tip of the iceberg. So I think being more conscious to like when you're talking to someone, you're having a conversation, well, can you hold hands or put a hand on a shoulder or whatever, like these moments.
Holding hands and having a conversation can be so powerful. So powerful for building connection.
Yeah.
You're holding hands. Like there's a much deeper thing going on there. You're connecting not just through your words and your eyes, but you're actually having that physical touch too. The conversations, I think, go a little differently for sure. And it's also, especially, if it's an intense conversation, it can be calming.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So yeah, I think also like, obviously it should be normalized more for men, to touch, to hug, all that, but I don't tend to get too much on the subject of men. I let the men deal with their subjects. But for women, I think as sisters, why should we not cuddle up to each other and watch a movie? Why? What's the problem?
Well, no one would think twice about it if you were cuddling with your, I'm going to say, biological sister.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
There is no difference, really. Well, there shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be.
No. And, but you do see people being very standoffish. And I think for you and I, sometimes we really forget. I mean, I know not too long ago you said, can I have a hug to me? And ever since then I was like, oh, shoot. Yeah, because we do live so close to each other. We see each other all the time. Sometimes we forget.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right? It's just like, when was the last time I had Jamie? Oh, yeah. Right? So, yeah. But it should be more normalized and without the judgment, without the shame. And I'm sure that women were probably judged for this in such ways that there's trauma related to the witch trials too. I'm like, I'm not, again, I don't have the research right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that I have read stuff like, I mean, obviously women weren't supposed to hang out
Well,
together. God
they
knows
weren't
they
even
weren't
allowed to
supposed
talk.
to touch.
Well, yeah. If you can't talk, you definitely can't
You
touch.
definitely can't touch. So you're a witch. We're gonna burn you. So yeah. So that definitely could be playing a role, and
I'm sure.
that's
Well,
so
definitely playing a role in connecting.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
how we connect.
How we connect. Oh my goodness. And that's, we'll get into that in more episodes as we get into the women's wounds. But it is a serious issue that we've got with generational trauma and the women's wound and the trauma that goes with that it is affecting our ability to connect with one another, be it verbally or physically.
Yeah.
We're scared of being vulnerable. We're scared of deep connection. And it's a sad state of affairs that we need to correct. So
yeah. Well, we touched on that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the moment to say that.
Yeah, you with the puns always. So we encourage you to practice hugging. If you're not a hugging type, find a safe place for where you feel comfortable with that, whether it be with friends or with family, and try to practice that hugging for the 20 seconds and see if it helps you. It is part of the healing process. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I would I'm actually noticing as I'm getting ready to sign off, I have to add this really quick. Apparently in the 1940s and 50s, there were ads that emphasized physical connection to promote unity.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Imagine.
Often portraying touch as a vital part of family bonding, which tells us that this was a problem at the time that they were seen. Pretty interesting to look further into, for sure. So it's not like this is something new in our society or some new concern that was only caused by a pandemic or only being caused because we've gone online. This is generational.
It's been an ongoing issue.
This is an ongoing issue for a while. Why? Let's heal it, guys. Like, seriously, let's heal it. Boundaries are great. You should have them. Obviously, only do what you're comfortable with, as you know, and but we also have to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones to grow. So let's all heal together and hug.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, shall we sign off on this one?
Let's do it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. This has been Unraveling with July and Jamie. And until next time, be kind.